Welcome to Women in the Arena podcast, the podcast celebrating women doing extraordinary things in plain sight. I'm your host, Audra Egan, and our mission is to elevate the value, strength, and resilience each woman brings to the world. Without further delay, let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for joining me again this week at Women in the Arena podcast. Before we get started for this week's show, I want to take a moment. I need to acknowledge and recognize you as this amazing, remarkable community. You all inspire me. You humble me. You take my breath away. I have said many times on this show that I wanted to change the world one interview at a time. You are already making a difference. You're already changing the world. And all I can say is thank you. Please keep it up. Please keep showing up for each other and reach out to people that you haven't yet met that still need your help. This show is so much more than a show. It is a movement, and it is one that I'm very proud and humbled to be your ambassador of. So let's go ahead and get on with this week's show. Oh, you are really going to enjoy Liz. She is smart, she is funny, she is insightful, and she's asked a really interesting question. It may make you uncomfortable. I hope it makes you think, and I hope you enjoy. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's start the show. Welcome in, everyone, and thank you once again for joining me today. I am very excited to introduce to you my next guest. Today, I am joined by Liz Whitehead, and she is a business consultant that specializes in guiding businesses in diversity. She also is a two-time recipient of the Women Presidential Educational Organization Awards, as well as a 2019 Outstanding Women's Business Advocate Award. So you can say that Liz's business is to make sure that women are their best. So it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce to you and welcome Liz Whitehead. Liz, thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Audra. I'm really excited about it.
I am really happy that you're here. We have an amazing conversation today. But before we roll into that, would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself so we can get to know you a little bit better?
Certainly. So you talked about my company. I help diverse businesses get bigger clients and more of them. And I live in the DC area where I'm from. I'm a mom of two, a wife to one, and yeah.
You never know. Sometimes you have to clarify that.
Yeah, so it's good. It's good. My life is pretty good. You know, I feel like that's where we are right now, where people are like, "How are you?" And you're like, I can't complain, I guess."
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of all there. We're kind of like, okay. I mean, it's not good, it's not bad, but we're okay. And by last year's standards, that's doing pretty good. If you're okay, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
So, well, I am glad that you're here. And you and I met recently, and you asked an amazing, thoughtful, provocative question. And the moment you posed it, I started thinking about it and couldn't stop thinking about it. So I can't wait to share this question with our audience. And that question is, why do we wait for permission to be great? Well, that's what a big, fat, juicy question that is. So, Liz, why? Why do we wait to be invited to be great?
You know, I have more questions than answers around that. But I think, if I think about myself, when I was growing up, I went to Catholic school and I was a good little Catholic kid. I talk about this a lot. I was actually really terrified that I would have a calling. So
Oh,
calling is when God asks you to be a member of the clergy. In Catholicism, that's a priest. And obviously, for a girl, it would be a nun. And I was always really worried. Like, I was worried about it. Like, what if I had a calling and then I had to be a nun? Oh, no. Um, but I think part of that, like, I think a lot of that structure and the rituals around Catholicism, it really teaches you how to follow rules, and rules are important. Um, but the flip side of that is that you're kind of always waiting for permission or getting that approval. At least I was definitely the kind of kid that did that. So,
well, if it makes you feel better, I am also a 12-year Catholic education refugee.
oh,
So,
really?
yeah, oh yeah. I have never worn green plaid since, and I never will. So, if that if that gives you any indication. So, I relate to what you're saying, and I'm sure that there are lots of people that are listening that relate to that because in that environment, you are always waiting for permission because I don't know about your environment, but my environment had big, scary instructors, not all of them nuns and priests, but I had big, scary instructors that used to carry yardsticks. And that was no joke.
Oh yeah. I was past the yardstick phase, I think. Like I think there had been some laws about that when I was going, but I mean, I remember in 5th grade, um I was at our teacher sat us according to how well we did on our last math test. So the person who did the best sat at the front, and then you basically went in rows behind that. And on the next math test, I actually I missed a question or something, or maybe I just didn't do that well. I don't really remember. But what I do remember was that she sat the whole class down, then made a big show of me moving from the very front to the very last desk. And I think about that now. I'm like, what was the pedagogical reason to do that?
Oh my, so she basically publicly shamed you for trying and failing, is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, and also, I also say, Catholic school, my grammar is very good, right? Grammar really lends itself to the sort of that kind of system because there's all rules. You can
Yes.
diagram a sentence, a noun is a noun, a verb is a verb, and you can diagram the sentence. But when I got into high school, I actually didn't go to a Catholic high school and we had to write an essay. I was completely lost. I was like, wait, you want my opinion? I got to make an argument and it might not be the same as what you, the teacher, thinks. I was completely lost. It took me a while to pick it up.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Fortunately, the Catholic high school that I went to was a little bit more progressive by, Catholic school standards, and we had to write opinion pieces a lot. So it was there that I started to learn a voice. But at that point, and for you, I would imagine that that structure and that permission and that public shaming had already been ingrained in you because it had happened during your formative years. And that leaves a mark.
Sure. Yeah, I think it does, and I think you know. And again, you went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school. I don't want to hit Catholic school too hard because I think there are some great pieces about it. The Jesuits are wild. They don't follow any rules.
No,
you
they
know,
don't.
but I think there's a lot of us that these little and I was a good student. I wasn't even someone that typically struggled in school, although I had my moments. And I think there's just a lot of us out there that we follow the path, we follow the rules, and then that is the key to success. That's the key to being great, is to follow these rules. And it took me a long time. I think I'm still figuring out that that's not always the case.
No, and you bringing up that story about you were shamed for failing, and she made a big to do of it in front of the entire class. I will tell you that I was in my mid 30s until I had a leader. It was an executive leader that literally told me that if you don't fail and make mistakes, you are not working hard enough. And that blew my mind. And he said to me, it's because you're making mistakes, it is making you stretch beyond your comfort zone. And that's where we want you to go. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is this man talking about? What do you mean you want me to make
Sure.
mistakes? You're encouraging me to make mistakes? I don't understand. And that happened in my 30s. So
Right.
I was trying really hard, probably like you, to be perfect and to be right in what I was doing all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I was really compartmentalizing things. Like I think about this. We didn't go this year, but last year I took my 5 year old, then 5 year old, he's now 6, to go skiing. And he skied for the first time and he loved it. And he said after he got back from one of the lessons, he's like, well, I fell down X many times. I was like, well, if you're not falling down, you're not trying. And then you're just sticking to what you know. Like you got to fall down. And I remember, that was something that my dad told me when I was learning to ski. So I'm like, there's like little parts of it in there. There's little parts of it, but I think I was the type of person who really compartmentalized school and work, and then like it's okay to fall down if you're playing, but not at school, not at work. So that's really cool that you had a boss that said that. I mean, again, what were we waiting for? We had to wait till you had to wait till you were in 30s. What were we waiting for?
Yeah, I literally I waited for permission to make mistakes. I even recently had a boss that gave me permission to grow. And he said to me, why are you waiting for my permission? He says, I'm going to back you up no matter what you do, even if you make a mistake, because I know you are doing your best and you're stretching. And it wasn't until he said, I promise you, I will back you up no matter what you do, even if you make mistakes. Please get on with it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I literally was holding myself still until I had a leader told me that it was okay. And I thought,
Yeah.
this is crazy. And that was, I mean, and that's been within the last year. I can't even sugarcoat that. That was been within the last year. And this is why we're having this conversation, is because these things are happening over and over and over again. And it was in my life and your life. And I can't even imagine how many other people's lives are out there doing that. And what I want to talk about is that, first of all, how do we fix it? And why do we wait until something pivotal happens in our lives to take a leap? Because if we had taken that leap before we were pushed to do it, what could we have gotten done? So that is something that I think is really an interesting question. So let's first start with, how do we fix this? Let's start with our children and then work our way up to ourselves. So first of all, how do we stop this inherited trend of waiting for permission or being afraid to fall?
Yeah, it's such a good question because I mentioned I have 2 kids, and one of the things I remember when I was reading all the books, which I have to say I put down after the kids turned 1, but I'm sure I'll pick them back up again when they hit the preteen years. But that you're not supposed that one of the things that was a surprise to me was that you praise kids for the trying, right? Like you don't the idea is not to say like, "Oh, you're so smart," because then they get afraid to do something that might show they're not smart. Whereas if you say, "Look how creatively you solve that problem," or and you're really specific about it. Like I liked how you used orange in your picture. I wouldn't have thought to do that. That's cool. Those kind of things actually tell them that it's okay that the beauty is in the trying of it. And it's funny that you ask about what we do about the kids, because I was telling a friend of mine about my son, and he was talking about something that he did. I don't know what it was. I think it was dancing, actually. And he said it was perfection. And she said, "Where does he get that confidence?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe the patriarchy." And she was like, "Well, you win some, you lose some." Um, but so it's also like I think there's a difference between girls and boys. I have two boys. But I also think it's different. I think we let boys be sillier and goofier and mess up a little more.
Well, I think that is important that you say that, is that we let boys take more chances. And, why don't we do the same with girls? And why can't we say it's totally okay to color outside the lines? You don't need to make that picture perfect, because maybe the beauty is outside the lines rather than in them. Um, how do we reinforce that with our daughters? So you said that changing our language may be part of the key, but uh, what are some other things you think that we can do, that we can just encourage our girls to fail forward? Because boys are great at failing forward, which they become men that fail forward. How do we do that with girls that become women that fail forward?
Yeah. I mean, these are such heavy questions. I wish I knew a good answer. I do think modeling it is good. So my kids and I, like at the end of the day, this is also something I picked up from a book, was that when you ask your kids, especially little kids, but I imagine older kids too, how was your day? And they're like, fine. What'd you do? Nothing. That's what you get. And so
Right.
this book suggested we play a game called Two Truths and a Lie, where
Oh, I love that game.
yeah, and the kids really like it, where you say two true things that happened to you during the day and one lie, and then the people have to pick out the lie. And in the course of doing it, you start a conversation. And uh, it actually is just occurring to me now, but one of those things, one of those truths could be like, I always say like, oh, I got a new client, or mommy was on a podcast today, or something like that. But to say, you know what, I lost a client today, or mommy made a big mistake today. I don't think about it. But I mean, I think modeling that behavior, that, whenever people ask me like about my career trajectory and how it goes, I'm like, it's only linear in retrospect. When I was going through it, everything seemed like a big deal and nothing seemed like it matched up, all the way. So I think just modeling that behavior on an individual level is important. I mean, if you look in the macro level, there's probably a million smart policy things that we should be doing.
Well, you know what I started to do, but started to do it late. I'll admit late. When my kids, because my kids are college age kids. When they were younger, we bought them gender appropriate toys, because we have one of each. We have a boy and a girl. But it wasn't until they got older and I started having nieces and nephews that I stopped. I stopped buying them gender appropriate toys and books and started mixing it up. I started to buy kitchen stuff for my nephew, and I started to buy like trucks for my nieces, and mixed it up just because I wanted them to try something new. I will tell you that my family thought I was insane, but I was doing it on purpose because I had realized that I was reinforcing something and keeping my own children in a box. And I didn't want to continue that. So I've had to undo a couple of things with my children now as they're young adults, and kind of break out of those social confinements and make them spread their wings in different areas. I wonder if we all did that a little bit, that it wouldn't start to shift the dynamic.
Absolutely. One of the things that I was thinking about, because the other thing is, why do this? One, it's good for us to realize that we don't always have to wait for permission, but we're also missing out on a lot of that talent of girls that could be incredible engineers or great in the STEM fields. This is a thing that that's a flip side of this question is, what are we waiting for permission to do? And by having these people wait for permission, what are we missing out on? I was prompted to this question by an entrepreneur I heard about who, got laid off from her job and then started this company that is helping small business owners with these really innovative marketing techniques. And I was like, well, see, this is why. And then the company that she worked for, of course, they have to hire her company to bring these great ideas. It's like she was right there.
Yeah. You had her with a salary. Now you have to pay her double.
Exactly. Now you have to pay a premium to get these solutions because you couldn't create a situation where she could do that. So I'm skipping ahead to like that too. But I also, and I think that's one of the things, like, yeah, you can play with what you want. And the same is true for boys too, that the patriarchy winds up hurting all of us, and it hurts boys too, having to fit into a mold and not be able to do things because they're perceived as feminine or what have you. So we're missing out on a lot of people not being able to be their whole selves, or just stop thinking about being them whole selves, just being them so they can do great work and be great.
Yeah, do magnificent things, whatever it is, because everybody's been
Mhm.
given these remarkable, unique gifts, and you should use them in any way you see fit. Any way that you can, number one, make yourself happy, and two, create value for the world. I mean, that's the reasons why you've been given gifts is for yourself and for your fellow man. That literally, that's why you are given things to give out. But since you're skipping ahead to what do we do when we're adults, because that's what everybody is listening. Everybody that's listening is probably an adult and is like, great, okay, I'll try and change some things with my kids, but what about me? So how do we change this mindset about us waiting? Like I said, within the year, I didn't realize that I was standing there at the starting line holding my breath until my leadership said, "What are you waiting for? I give you permission to fail." And I didn't even know I was doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is really a lot of people have talked about, again, during COVID-19, having this time to reflect. Now, some people don't have any time to reflect. They're barely holding, they're homeschooling, they're working full-time jobs, they're taking care of their parents, all of those things. And I think I fall somewhere in between where I've had a little more time to reflect because I'm usually pretty social. I usually spend a lot of time out, a lot of time at networking events and things like that. So I think it's being intentional about finding that time to reflect and identifying those areas where you might be stuck. Or I always think about it too, when someone tells you what they do or what they're doing, like, what are the things that make you be like, I wish I could do that? And it doesn't have to be work. It doesn't have to be, you know, I'm the CEO of a company or things like that. It could be like every year my family and I go skiing. One of the things I thought about, my cousin's neighbor took their family for a year, took them out of school and traveled around the world for a year. And I was like,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. And they had school age kids and they're like, whatever, we'll just homeschool them for a year. Well, haha, now we're all of us who have young kids, like, you know how to homeschool.
Now you're all
You can
stuck.
do that. Yeah, exactly. Whatever. I'm a part-time teacher now. It's fine. Um, but and I came home and I was telling my husband about it. I was like, yeah, I mean, isn't that the coolest? I wish we could do something like that. He's like, well, sure we can. We just have to put a plan in place. And I was like, what? And then
Yeah.
he said, well, if you want to do it, I mean, why not? I mean, what would be holding us back? Okay, we'd rent out the house. We do that. Like, he's like, there's just steps you take to make it happen. I was like, oh.
Oh, it is possible. And literally that was your husband saying, here's
Give
permission. If
me
you really want to
permission.
do it, we
Yes.
can do it. And I think that, like I said, we're sort of ingrained that way. We have inherited that. It's not something that we have done consciously. We have inherited that. And I have a proposal, and
Okay.
it goes along with what I've been trying to promote. I've been trying to promote that uh, our our sisters in arms, our women colleagues, our women friends, it has been traditionally viewed as competition. I'm trying to change that and view other women as our greatest asset. What if we can't recognize what we're doing, that we're holding ourselves back within ourselves, but we can recognize people holding themselves back in each other, like other women? What if we gently posed the question to other women and said, I think you're really great. Why don't you stretch a little bit more and do it in such a way that it doesn't feel like you're putting them down or saying that there's anything wrong with them. But what if we recognize the greatness in each other and we said it out loud? What do
I
you think
think
would happen?
I think that's fantastic. I love that idea because I was thinking about that too, right? What happens when someone's doing something you want to do or you traveling around the world, right? You think of all the ways that it's bad or they shouldn't be doing that, right? Like, well, that's ridiculous. Your kids are going to be so behind in school. And like, they're probably losing a ton of money on their house. And they're probably, you can think about, and when, instead of thinking about those things, like that is just your, unmanifested dreams, like bubbling up inside you, right? All
Right,
that
exactly.
jealousy and what have you. And instead of being like, that's fantastic. And when I think the other thing is when people talk to you, like, about those things, like, well, why not you? You know, like, oh, she got a promotion, and of course she did because of this. Well, why not you? That could be you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, instead of doing that traditional, who does she think she is? How about look at who she is? That's
Yeah.
Look at what she's done. And if she can do it, I wonder what I can do. So what if we change that crazy narrative that runs around in our head and we flipped it on its side and decided to become each other's best cheerleaders? That way we could break this weird cycle of asking for permission. Because I think that the reason why we do that, of who does she think she is because we look at her and go, she didn't get permission. That's
Right.
what goes on in my head. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. She didn't get permission. And I will point out in the past couple of, you know, examples of us saying that we did get permission, you from your manager, me from my husband, we're talking about men.
Yes, we are.
We not only got permission, but we specifically got it from men. And I think that's really interesting too. That, yeah, we can also, okay, if you need permission, well, we can give you permission. I actually did that on one of my last calls when I was talking to people. I said, if you're waiting for permission, you've got it now. I give you permission to launch your business. I give you permission to think differently about this thing. So, but I think you're right. I think there's more to it. There's the support factor and okay, well, these are the things you need to do to make it happen. You can make it happen.
Yeah, isn't that exciting? Those things that have been rolling around in your head that keep you up at night and excite you and go, if only, what if one day, what if you just decided to do them?
Mm-hmm.
What would what would that do? I mean, literally, if you've just decided to do it, what would that do? And what's the worst thing that could happen? It doesn't
Right.
work? So what? I mean, literally, so what? Try again. Change it a little bit. Try again. I've heard the phrase that successful entrepreneurs don't fail; they just have a multitude of attempts to success. They don't consider it failure; they consider them learning opportunities.
Yeah. One of the things my grandmother used to say is it's, learning something is not a load you have to carry. You know, if you
That's a
learn something, it's not a burden.
No, agreed. And leading to this, you specialize in women that are either in their infant stage of starting a business, or they're in a transition of in the middle of a business trying to grow it. You said to me when you and I first met that the majority of the women that you talk to, the reason why they are starting a business is because they got displaced, that
Hmm.
it was that something traumatic, something pivotal happened in their lives, and that's when they took advantage of, I'm just going to take a leap and start this. So how do you first of all, how do you counsel those women in that situation?
Well, I think, yeah, and that's exactly right. And that's why I came to this whole question with you to begin with, was that, I facilitate a group of multi-million-dollar women business owners. So they've been very successful in their business. And a lot of them said, yeah, I started my business because I got laid off. Sometimes people start because they're getting divorced and then they're going to be a single parent and and they need that flexibility. Me and my business partner talk about that all the time. We started our businesses because we were having, not our first kid, but our second kid. In her case, I think it was her third kid. And we were like, we need a more flexible arrangement. We've tried to do the asking for permission thing with one
Mhm.
kid, and we know it's not going to work for multiple. So I think it comes up a lot. And what I counsel people, so at the beginning, you're like, okay, now I have permission to do this. It is scary. We talk about, my husband and I are both entrepreneurs. We talk about that, breaking the addiction to the paycheck. That's scary. But then it does become scary that what got you to one place, like you're going to get to a point where you've done it. The thing that you thought was impossible, well, now you're there. So what's next after that? You have to keep growing and keep scaling and keep pushing yourself. And that, I think that can seem scary. Whereas you're like, well, I can just sit here and I can complain about my boss and nothing's going to change. Um, and that's less uncertain. It's less scary. I think better the devil you know, right, is something that people think. Whereas when you start thinking bigger, then you realize, I mean, I always tell people, especially when they're starting out, that, work your business, work your plan, and the business you have now, if you're just starting, is going to look totally different from 2 years from now. It just is, because you're going to learn things and fail at things and change things. So you're going to do a lot of growing in those first couple years. And you have to be able to just flow and adapt with it, knowing that that is a manifestation of what you've been waiting for permission to do.
So there are lots of women that are hearing this going, maybe I can. What are some easy resources for them to start looking into if they're thinking, well, I want to maybe start this little business on the side while I'm still addicted to this paycheck, and grow it on the side until the side hustle becomes the main hustle. So what resources can they turn to help them through that?
I also love that idea, Audra. I am not against the side hustle, because it's something a lot of, I think, entrepreneurship people and coaches don't talk about a lot, which is you need money to live while
Yes.
you're achieving your dreams. You do need that. So yeah, building up that safety net is good and will give you the flexibility in your business to try new things, right? If you just have to get that client come hell or high water, well, that's not going to leave you to be very flexible. So I totally appreciate the side hustle. And I always recommend a couple of organizations. I'm in the DC area, but these actually have a national component to them. So Hera Hub, it's a female focused co working space, but they have a Hera launch program for women who are in the professional world and thinking about starting a service based business on the side. So I think that's a great resource. And again, available nationally. Now that we're all virtual, it doesn't matter where you are, you can go.
As long
And
as you have an internet connection, you're there.
exactly, you can go there. And then the other one is Her Corner, which is a peer group for women who are growing their new businesses. But what I like about them, so women at different stages, so like the multi-million dollar peer advisory group has very different needs than someone who's just starting out, just thinking about their customer discovery. And Her Corner is very curriculum based. So for those of us who are good little students and like to have a plan and check it off and turn in our homework and get it
Oh,
approved,
yeah.
it's very good and very practical steps toward identifying where's your money coming in, what does your customer want, what's your plan, how are your finances helping you to achieve that plan, that kind of thing.
Well, Liz, I thank you for bringing up this very, like I said, very thoughtful, very interesting, very provocative question that we could talk for hours about and may not necessarily get to the right answer because maybe there's not a right answer. Maybe there's multiple tries and multiple fails until we finally, get something that works for us. And I appreciate you raising this question. If there are women that want to reach out to you directly because maybe they're business owners right now and they're trying to shift their business in an upward direction, or maybe they're small entrepreneurs and wanting to move to the next level. How would they get in touch with you to have a conversation with you?
Thank you. The best way they can get in touch with me is to go to my website, which is 12.5.com. And that's the number 12, 1, 2, and then point 5 spelled out.com.
Amazing. And like I said, everybody listening, if you're waiting for permission, you don't need mine and you don't need Liz's, but we're going to say a blanket statement right now. You have permission.
You have permission. Just go for it.
Yeah, just go for it. Just go for it. I promise you, magic happens outside your comfort zone. I'm living it. I never thought that I would have a weekly podcast, but here I am. And my life has changed forever because of it. And it's changed for the better. And it's all because I leaned into or leaned outside of my comfort zone and decided to make a change. So I'm not suggesting you guys all do a podcast, but do something that scares you and it'll excite you at the same time. So,
yeah.
Liz, before I let you run, I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you that everybody looks forward to. And here's a really interesting one that I want you to think about. I'm trying to change the idea that we can't communicate what we need. We all have this weird Wonder Woman syndrome, which is ridiculous because we can't do all things for all people all at the same time. What is it that you need? Because we have an entire community out there that's listening that might be able to help you with what you need. What do you need?
Oh, I love this question. I need an expert in CRMs, which is customer relationship management systems. This is an area where I have made many mistakes. And I was like, I'm finally like, you know what? There is somebody that knows more about this than I do that can tell me what to do. So that would be great. I really need that. And I think, that's the main thing for right now. As I said, I'm feeling pretty good, feeling like I can't complain. So I don't know, maybe a travel agent to take that worldwide trip when COVID's over.
Well, let's start with the CRM expert and work our way up.
Yeah.
uh, so my next question for you is, what are you going to give away? We talked about you being given gifts that are literally to make yourself better and to make other people better. What are you going to give away?
Well, I am always happy to talk to a women entrepreneur or aspiring woman entrepreneur. Happy to give you time on my calendar. I have time set aside that is just for people like you, just to talk through it, to have someone who did it, who made mistakes, and that you can learn from. So I'm happy to give away 30 minutes of my calendar to people who want it.
Everybody, please take advantage of that, because she is brilliant as she is warm, and she won't steer you wrong. She is an expert in her field, so please take advantage of her giving away her time and her expertise. My last question for you is, what book have you read that you think everybody should read?
Oh, the book that I've read that I think everybody should read. This is a really good question, because I have been trying. This is one of my things. I want to read so much more this year. I just read, this has nothing to do with business or even that much with women, but it's called The Splendid and the Vile. And it's about the Blitz of England during World War II. So it seems like this conversation just totally took a left turn. But I read it, and I will say the first 80 pages, I was like, I don't know. But Winston Churchill is such an interesting person in that. And he, during that whole time, and really it shows how it was really England on her own against the world, and how he led people through that with his unique blend of charm and strategy and smarts. It was very inspiring for me as a business owner, I have to say. And so there's a lot of business books out there, but The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson, I really, really enjoyed.
That sounds really fascinating, because you can use those lessons and apply it to your own life, it sounds like. Because if it was him against the world, I mean, aren't we all kind of me against the world?
Yeah, we can all feel that way, certainly. And it was just so fascinating, and such a fascinating time in history, which you think you know about, but then you're like, oh yeah, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So The Splendid Vile?
And the Vile, yeah.
And The Splendid and the Vile. Okay.
Yeah.
Splendid and the Vile. Excellent. Everybody go pick that up. And I'm adding that to our book list. And eventually I will put together the book list and publish it. I'm getting there, guys. I'm getting it. I'm getting there. I promise. Liz, I cannot believe that 45 minutes has flown by. This has been one of the fastest conversations, I think. I've completely lost track of time. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to leave one last final statement with the audience.
You have permission to be great.
I love that. Perfect ending. Liz, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for the question. I reserve the right to bring you back, because I'm sure that we could think of really interesting questions to continue to talk about. Thank you for being here.
I would love that. Thank you, Audra.
Thank you again, all of you, for listening and your continued community and partnership. And I will see you again next time. And that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for being here. I can never give you enough gratitude, because without all of you, none of this is possible. I am still always in awe that my guests are volunteering to be so bold in their vulnerability. So thank you for continuing to do that. And to my audience, audience isn't the right word to describe you. So to you, I thank you. You are a community. So thank you for being a part of this community, and thank you for helping to nurture it and make it grow. And of course, you know I have this incredible team behind me that helps me produce this every single week. For Savannah, Alan, Jessica, Tina, Tisha, and my son Gavin, thank you so much for believing in me, believing in my mission, and continuing to help grow the Women in the Arena podcast. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.
This is just the beginning.
That's our show. I am so grateful for each and every one of you and your unwavering support and your continued belief in this movement that has become much bigger than me, much bigger than just a podcast. It has become this forward momentum that we are all doing together. If you are ready, or you know somebody that is ready to tell your story and share your value with the world, please connect with me. You can reach me at audra@womeninthearena.net. I am so honored and thankful that you will share your story with me, and I'll make sure that it is well taken care of. I will never stop thanking each and every one of you, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next week as we share another woman's story and we celebrate her doing extraordinary things in plain sight. We'll see you next time.
This